who you are today is not who you are, it's who you've been. And so if you want to change your trajectory, you want to become something different in the future, then you're going to have to do different things.
Knowing what your skill gap is and what you need to change and being ready to execute is already like the seeds are planted.
I believe that people are going to be more successful if they start shifting to more of like an identity-based goal than more of a financial goal.
How can I still do it if nothing else goes in the way that I would want it to?
The advice that I would give people is... Hey, and welcome to the Jason Forrest Show. I'm with my amazing wife, Mary Forrest, and today we are talking about goal setting. We're gonna share with you 3 simple but yet very, very powerful steps to achieve any goal, which is important because we're winding down 2024 and we must start thinking about 2025. In most businesses, 2025 has already started. Because if you're in sales, the things that you start doing today, you are not going to really see any benefit from those things, probably from 30, 60, maybe even 90 days from now. And so right now, as we're already in 2025, so we got to figure it out, and we got to do something about it. And so today, we're going to share with you the exact framework, the exact 3 steps that we teach. We teach all of our clients from all over the world. We also taught this to the United States Army, to their recruiting team as well, on how they and show them a way to improve their recruiting performance by 108% just by doing this framework, by doing these 3 very, very, very powerful steps. This is also the same 3 steps that we use to do our business, as well as the same 3 steps that we use for any new client that we take on, any new coaching client, any big billion-dollar company that we're working with. It always starts with these 3 very, 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 very powerful steps. So we're gonna get into it today, right?
I'm ready.
We're gonna do it.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So here's how this is gonna work. So just to kind of give a kind of a general overview. The first step is creating a very well-formed an outcome frame. We'll talk about that. The second step is being very clear on our skill gap, because that's an area that a lot of people forget. Who you are today is not who you are; it's who you've been. And so, if you want to kind of change, if you want to change your trajectory, you want to become something different in the future, then you're going to have to do different things. And so the question is, what are those things? We got to figure out that skill gap. And then the third step is we have to execute. And what's interesting, and this really comes from the wisdom of Blaine Wrench. If we were to debate right now and we all picked a side, and one person was on the outcome frame side, step 1, the other person was on the skill gap side, the other person was the execution side, your dad would probably take execute. It's all about execution, right? So he'd probably take that side.
He definitely would.
I'd probably take the skill gap side. I'm assuming you'd probably take the outcome frame side.
Yeah, I was thinking that beforehand. So good pick.
That's
Correct.
my guess. So I know you guys pretty well. So, but what's interesting is they're all equally important. If you have a very clear outcome frame as far as what you want and why you want it and how you're going to get there, and you're really good at that kind of planning part, but you are delusional on your skill gap, that's a problem. Or you are really clear on your skill gap, but you didn't do a good enough job planning and being real clear on your outcome, what you're trying to accomplish. Or you're really good at the first 2 steps, but you just don't execute. You just don't do the work that you need to do, or you underestimate the work that you need to do. See, I think most human beings, they just kind of believe that things are going to be easier than they are, and that's usually a mistake. The biggest kind of strategy, or one of the strategies that I live by when it comes to mental toughness, is actually kind of always assume the worst. Kind of always assume things are going to be harder than you thought they were going to be, because one of 2 things happens. Either number 1, it's not that hard. It's not as hard as you thought it was going to be, which is great, so you're prepared for it. Or it is as hard as you thought it was going to be, and you're also prepared for it. But it never works out if you think things are going to be easier than they're going to be, because you're not going to properly probably execute the way that you should. So we're going to unpack all of that today, and we're going to do that in a very efficient and effective time. So let's do it. Let's get into the first step, which is it's all about the outcome frame.
Yes. So, in that is looking at, to me, is first just taking a moment to know what in the world do you want to do? And for some people, that's very easy. And for others, myself included, I mean, the reason that is, I think the first step is the most important is because it's probably the most difficult for me to do. Executing and running, I have run really fast and hard in the wrong direction before. So it's more in alignment with my personality and my skill set. But sitting down and figuring out what do I want, or why do I want to do it, or how am I going to get there, that whole part was not second nature for me. And so to me, those are the most important pieces.
All right, well, let's break that down. So what we've developed at FPG is, we would call it the 4 questions to change your life. Now, what's interesting is that there's lots of sub questions inside those 4 questions.
Correct.
So I think it's actually like 30 questions. And for anyone who's watching us right now, in our show notes, we will actually give you our goal setting guide 100% for free. Again, just as our gift to you. So there'll be a link in this episode for you to download the goal setting guide and for you to fill out, and it'll be a great resource for you. So, yeah.
And I believe the goal setting guide is so magical because we've put a couple modalities together with it. And so I don't know if you remember this when we were creating it. So one is part of it is the well-formed outcome frame. This is NLP style of questions. And so, of course, we've made them ours, but there is a science behind these already working. We've added in 6 human needs languages in there, and as part of it, and the well-formed outcome frame, what I always think about with this is, remember when we had the what was it, the master coach, it was the webinar that you would do, that we had all these people that would join in, and then you would coach somebody on it. This was years ago.
Sure. The Mindset of a Sales Warrior Masterclass.
The Masterclass. That was the word I was looking for. So we had the Masterclass. And what was really interesting is you had so much integrity around who you were coaching on there, that it was really important. We told people that this was your first coaching session with them, that you didn't know what was happening, and you didn't. Like, you didn't know. But it had to be, there was a leash, right? There was something that was holding them back from getting to their goals, and you would coach them on these classes live, but we only had 10 minutes, right? You had 10 minutes to change a deep-seated belief that was in somebody's consciousness. And so one of the ways that we were able to speed it up, which I think I want to share with everybody, and I did share with them too, but I want everybody here to know, because we can use it on ourselves, or if you're a leader, you can use this technique on your team, is that we would have them go through this series of questions ahead of time, and it jump starts us to be also ready for execution and to understand. And if we do the goal setting guide, if we do this level of questions, knowing what your skill gap is and what you need to change, and being ready to execute is already, like, the seeds are planted. And we're start being able to do it.
And that's a really, really great point that you bring up. And I actually forgot that I used to do that. You're right. The kind of the challenge that we gave the world was that I will unleash you in 10 minutes or less.
From anything,
from any sales problem, any concern you have, any limiting belief, any fear as it relates to sales and your limiting beliefs around money. I will unleash you in 10 minutes or less. But you're right. The magic trick that they didn't realize was that prior to meeting me, they met you. And you took them through this first step, which is them being very clear on exactly what they wanted, exactly what their problem was, exactly what they had tried in the past. And they created this very clear picture. And of course, they were able to now articulate exactly what they wanted, why they wanted it, how they wanted it, what they tried in the past. And because they gave that information to me, I was able to unleash them in 10 minutes or less.
Right. And the hardest thing when we did that, I loved doing that. And I loved getting to, spend time talking with each of the people ahead of time. What I loved the most was them getting to this point, like watching it unravel in front of me. What was the hardest for me is that I couldn't coach them. And so that was a big pre-frame, I'd say, ahead of time. I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to think to yourself, especially the people that knew me, you're going to think to yourself, why is she not helping me right now? Why is she not answering my questions? And I can't do it because I needed the integrity of them with you, that they really were. So if you want to do this goal setting guide, do it. You can just write out the questions. The more powerful way is to have somebody else ask you them and write them down, or just talk it out. We don't even have to write it. You can just talk it out with somebody. Is hugely beneficial because they're also listening to make sure we answer the question. What's really interesting as you go through it is you will ask somebody a question and they will answer a different question. Isn't that fascinating?
Very fascinating.
Because our brain automatically changes the question in our head. And so, for instance, I might ask somebody, tell me about a goal that you want. Tell me something that you want. And they would share it. And I would say, okay, let's now use our imagination. The goal is complete. What do you see? And they'd go, well, I feel really strong and powerful. Ooh, isn't that interesting? I asked, what do you see? And they answered how they felt. Or I would say, how do you feel right now, knowing that it's already accomplished, that it's behind you? How do you feel? And they'll say, well, I hear myself saying good job. Huh. You now said here. So it's just a very interesting one, listening to our words through this. And so as somebody, if they're going through it, notice one, it's just curious to notice the way that you answer, and then go back and fill in the gaps. So if you read through your answers and the question says, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And you wrote, I feel 3 times. Okay, well, that's interesting to know that you're such a feeler. That's cool. That's cool knowledge. But go back and add in the visual and add in the hearing. That would be my one tip to everybody, to make sure that we're really rounding out the process of the goal setting at the beginning. Because in doing that and adding more senses to it, it's going to be so much stronger. And I don't understand the science of this, but when we do add all of the senses around it, the probability of hitting the goal skyrockets. So if I just have one, if I just feel what I would feel like afterwards, I have a certain percentage that it's going to make it. If I now can add on something that I'm going to see, it goes up. And if I can do see, hear, feel, and I like to add think to, or hear, being what do I hear somebody else telling me and what do I hear in my own head? I mean, you have now just created the greatest possibility of hitting your goal just from answering these few simple questions. Very fascinating.
Yeah, there's 2 things you said that I want to talk about. So number 1 is the importance of talking about something out loud, which we'll talk about, and number 2 is using all of those dimensions. So as it relates to using all the dimensions or the senses, as you would say, it really is a difference between someone watching a movie in black and white versus going to Universal and putting 3D glasses on and really like immersing themselves in this 4D experience where they can again feel it and touch it and taste it and smell it and see it and hear it and all those things. And so one of the things that we know from NLP of studying high producers is high producers, they just have all of their senses open whenever they're performing at the highest possible level, versus depressed people or people that are just not moving as fast. They don't have all those senses open. So you're right. We definitely need to open up all those senses. But the other thing you said though is the importance of talking about something. And I wish I had the research in front of me on this, but I just heard this recently. I thought it was pretty fascinating. And they just said that your probability of accomplishing, not only accomplishing something, but of it becoming more significant in your life is if you take that self-talk and you make it verbalized. And that could be negative or positive. So for example, if you have negative self-talk, it's one thing, but when you actually verbalize that negative self-talk and you tell someone about it, then it actually creates more power over you because one, you're probably sharing it with someone else. You probably feel it now in your bones when you share it. You're also hearing it back to you, and so now it's kind of hitting you in a different. From a different sense perspective. And so now on the positive side, I think you're correct. I know you're correct that instead of just doing the goal setting exercise just by yourself, journaling, with a nice chair and a coffee or a latte and just kind of answering the questions, you're right. I think it's much more beneficial if someone else could interview you. They fill it out while you're talking these things through.
Yes. And when I'm in class, when I have a class of people that we're doing this, a lot of times they might write it out on their own time. We come to class and you're in a group and you're sharing it with other people. So you're also going through that experience. So some of us, salespeople for the most part, we like being interviewed more than writing something down. We're talkers, not writers, for the most part. And so we would appreciate it that way. But if this is something we're doing with more people in a company, there are some people and even some salespeople that like to sit with it with their latte in the comfy chair and do it on their own. So even if that's your process, go read it out to somebody afterwards. It will still have that same effect.
That's great. Okay, so let's break down. So in the well-formed outcome frame part of it, which I think is important, and again, we've learned that from our NLP training that we had with Susan Stageman and all the learning that we've done.
Yes.
And I think one other thing I want to say on this I think is very fascinating is that you really can say kind of you're kind of you're kind of 1/3 closer to achieving your goal just by doing this exercise. Because what will happen is your reticular activating system, as part of your brain, is really like a goal-seeking mechanism. And that's been talked about a lot from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill or Maxwell Maltz when he wrote the book Psycho-Cybernetics. And so we've been talked about this part of our brain for a long time. Well, when you do this goal-setting exercise, it's literally kind of programming that goal-seeking mechanism in your brain, that sidewinder missile, that to say, hey, this is really what I want, and I want to start kind of moving towards that direction, which is really fascinating because then your brain is so powerful that you go to sleep and that's what you're thinking about and sleeping on, and now it's in your subconscious, and there's so much value of just doing that, that first step, right?
Right. And there's a lot behind, right? There's a million videos out there on manifesting things. How do I manifest it? Well, yes, I believe that we're energy and there's energetic things, but there's also the part of our brain that is deciding what we notice and don't notice all the time, our reticular activating system. It is a physical part of our brain right at the base of your brain that is pulling out some information and deciding what you're going to notice at any moment. And that's why, again, you're right, the words are powerful, because if I'm saying, nobody's buying or no one's qualified or nobody wants this, my brain goes, got it, Mary. I am going to make sure that you notice everyone that doesn't want something, that doesn't want to buy from you, that doesn't like it, that can't afford it, that can't qualify. I'm going to find those people to make you right. Your brain wants to make you right. And so the things that you say, it starts to find it. So yes, there is an energetic component, but to those that are like, that feels a little woo, it's a part of your brain. Your brain is also doing that because there's so much going on around us all the time that we have to have something that's deciding what we notice and don't notice.
That's it.
So you don't go crazy.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so let's go through the 4 questions again in the goal setting guide. All the questions are there, all the detailed questions besides the 4. But the four questions are: what do you want? Why do you want it? How are you going to get there? And whose coaching do you need? So some tips that I would share with people is the first question of that: what do you want? It's very clear. Most salespeople, when you ask that question, they're going to say, I want to make more money. And of course, that's very vague. So the more specific, the better. So if I was coaching them, I would say, okay, well, specifically, how much more money do you want to make? So what are you making now, and how much more do you want to make? And we get to the point where they say, okay, I want to make $100,000 more. All right. Well, so here's the thing that I think is very, very important that goes along with that first question that I don't think we spend enough time talking about. And that comes from the wisdom of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was one of my favorite mentors in my life, and he was also the coach over Tony Robbins. And he would say, "Don't set goals for what they will make you. Set goals for what they will make you become." Right. So don't set goals for what they will get you or what they will earn for you, but set goals for what they will make you become. So in that first question of what do you want? When someone says, I want to make $100,000, well, I like to actually give them advice and say, that's great. So let's kind of put that off to the side now, and now let's answer the rest of the questions with really a better version of what do you want, and that's who is it going to make you become? It's like, now, so what kind of person do you have to be in order to make an extra $100,000? What's the identity that you need to now kind of embody? And so it's interesting because if we can actually kind of shift them away from this more kind of results-oriented goal to something that is more an identity goal or a something that's more in their control. is what I'm trying to figure out. That if they become that, then of course they'll make the extra 100,000. So let's move towards what that is.
So give some examples. Like, so if in that of what somebody could become, like what are those identities? What are examples that they could be?
Yeah. So it would be like, so so the biggest example would be that one of the things that I believe every salesperson should want to master, and that's to be the salesperson that a customer stops them in their place and they say, "Hey, Mary, can I just say right now, you are the greatest salesperson I've ever met in my entire life. The greatest, the absolute very best." Just yesterday, I was doing a conference for the largest reverse mortgage company in the United States, and I was talking to the top 20%, the top 20% producers, and I asked the audience. I said, right now, out of all the sales experience you ever had in your entire life, all of them, whatever major purchase it was, how many can you really think about that you're like, you know what, that person took me from a place of uncertainty to a place of certainty. That person took me from a place of, I'm not doing this, to, I need to do this right now. I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to do this. They truly convinced you by solving a problem that improved your life, and they got you from a place of, I'm not sure, to, hell yeah, I'm doing this right now. And it was 0, 1, 2, 3 out of their entire life. And this was a whole audience of 100 different people in the room. And so to me, if people could shift from look, forget about making an extra 100 grand. You know, sure, that 100 grand's great, but who do you need to become to make that kind of money? And so if I can shift people to say, well, I need to be a salesperson that is revered. I need to be a salesperson that people stop and say, man, you're the greatest salesperson I've met in my entire life. You know, I need to be a warrior. I need to be a resolution-oriented person. You know, okay, now let's talk about that. And see, that changes to me like the energy of the entire thing. And now, of course, it's also easier, in my opinion, to lead to the second question, which is, you know, why do you really want that? You know, why do you want that? And of course, the third question of, you know, how are you going to get there? What are some actionable steps? And then the fourth question is whose coaching do you need? Who's coaching? You know, what support, what resources can you have to help you become the world's greatest salesperson? Or it might be, or it might be a manager, or it might be a leader, or it might be so many options.
Good. Okay, so can I take myself through this?
Please.
Okay. You know, I need to see an example to be able to understand things. So in this one, let's say I want the identity now. We'll take the money off the table. I want the identity of being the most revered salesperson. And I know that I need to be a believer in what I do. I want to be a great convincer. My why might be because I want to help people live a better life. I want to be a moment of change for the better, for the world and for individual people. And then my whose help would I need, that would be, for me, I would go through the people that I know that are great, that embody that. Whether it's, hey, my husband, I can call you and talk to you about it. Or also it could be people that I don't know, but I want to read their book, or I want to, I know that they're great, so I want to go study them. So that way I'm not limited to the people that are alive and living right now and in my proximity. Is that, did I do it correctly?
Yeah, that's right. So again, I believe that people are going to be more successful if they start shifting to more of like an identity-based goal than more of a financial goal. Now, again, everyone wants to have the financial goal, and I totally get it. And that's, to me, that is a good kind of icebreaker question, because you first have to create in sales, that's the easiest way to get there, is you first create, what is the financial goal that I'm moving towards, but then it's what's the identity I need to have in order to become that, in order to be the magnet to that. And it might be a resourceful person. It might be a grateful person. It might be a trustworthy person. It might be a advisor person. It might be a respected person. It might be a gravitas person. It might be, there's so many identities that a person, a resilient person. There's so many identities a person can have. But to me, it's like if the reason why people do not achieve what they want in life is because, in my opinion, is because they are not the person that's worth that yet. And that's kind of a tough thing to think about, right? But again, they're not really worthy of that yet. That doesn't mean they're not capable of it yet, but they're not worthy of it yet.
Worthy, like in their skill set, I'm assuming is their.
Yeah, worthy in their skill set, right? So, for example, I want to double my income next year. Okay, well, are you the type of salesperson that's attracting doubling your income? Are you worthy in the sense of doubling your income, not from like a self-worth thing, but like meaning that like my belief system is this: when it comes to sales and when it comes to making money, is that I am earning exactly the value that I'm providing the world. Not a penny more, not a penny less.
It's probably the only profession where that is completely accurate.
100%.
Maybe entrepreneurism. Maybe we could throw that in there, but
which is probably sales as well, right? So
right.
So if I want to give myself a 10% pay raise, well, I have got to find a way to provide 10% more value to the world. I have to do that.
I must be 10% better.
I must be 10% more valuable.
Right.
And provide 10% more value, right? So what is that? What am I currently, what kind of person, what's the identity of a person that can command, 10% more with the same number of opportunities? And that's interesting, right? Because a lot of people, they go, I want to give myself a 10% raise or a 30% raise or make 40% more money. And then immediately that starts making them very external. And it says, well, so how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to go, beg marketing to get me better leads. I'm going to
bring the cookie bouquet to the marketing department.
Yeah, I'm going to beg my, beg my company to lower my price to give me better products. And so they're very external with that. But that's not what this approach is about. Because again, you see what I just said? I want you to immediately get off of an external track and get into an internal track. And if I can keep you back focused to, well, who do you need to become in order to do that? Then you can't be external anymore.
Well, and it goes back to something you said earlier, which was, I'm going to mess up the exact words, but it was something about pretending that everyone else is bad at their job, like that no one else is going to do it. So how can I make, I think that maybe that's a better question we ask ourselves. How can I make 10% more, 50% more, 100% more with marketing not doing their job, if operations doesn't do their job, if our innovation department doesn't innovate anything else, if our improvement department does not improve anything else, if my leadership is the worst and they don't even show up to meetings and no one coaches me, if I'm told I don't get an incentive at all the whole next year, how can I still do it if all of that else, if nothing else goes in the way that I would want it to? Would that be an accurate, fair way to say it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Right. And that's why I want people to very quickly move towards more of those identity-based goals than more of an external-based goals. Because if it's an external-based goal, then again, they're going to have kind of an external-based track, and they're still going to be in that dependency state of, as long as the following things happen external to me, then I'll achieve my goal. But that's a really bad way to start your year, is kind of to hoping that all these external things are kind of like the stars align, so to speak, and all these other people do their part for you to do your part. I don't want to do that. I want to assume, like I told you earlier, I want to assume that things are 100% going to be worse than I thought. And so who do I need to become, assuming things are going to be as bad as they were this year or even worse than they were this year, in order to still give myself, a 10% raise or a 20% raise? With that in mind, what kind of person do I need to be?
Well, it really sounds like the safest option too, because now I am safe. I'm taken care of no matter what everybody else does, or, what the outcome of the election is, or what the economy does, or what the market of my industry is doing. I'm okay because I'm not dependent anymore on the rest of it. I've put myself outside of it, which is interesting. And there are people, there's, kind of the devil's advocate in my head is like, but those things do affect us, but they affect some, but there's always people that are super successful in down markets. There are companies that maybe all but one of the salespeople is failing, but one of them's making it. One of them's doing it. So there's always these situations where there are people that no matter what's going on, they're making more money, being more successful, having more joy with that than anybody else is. It's very interesting.
That's right. Yeah, that's because they believe that they are the problem, they are the solution. They succeed or they fail, it's all in them. They're not again, they're not a dependent person on other people doing their parts for them to be successful or happy or joyful.
And how peaceful, like, you can
peaceful.
watch the news with peace. You can, be interested in what's going on in the world, but not be emotionally affected by it because you're such a pillar. You're so safe.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So again, we've got these 4 questions, right? So what do you want? Why do you want it? Of course, the why it's also connected to the why must be greater than the sacrifice. The why, it's all about how bad do you want it. That's really important. The third question, of course, is how are you going to get there? You've got to create a plan. You've got to create a strategy. The great Bill Beswick, he's a sports psychologist over in Europe that I follow, and he does a lot of sports psychology for European players. He'll ask a question that's very similar to ours, but I think it's actually even better that I want to start using. And when it comes to like that kind of how bad do you want it and what's your plan, he'll ask a question in there that says, how much are you willing to suffer?
Oh,
it's a great question, isn't it?
That's really good.
And of course, the player like, I want to be Lionel Messi. And why do you want to be Lionel Messi? Because I want to make tons of money, and I want to be the greatest, football player of all times. And he's like, well, how much are you willing to suffer? What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, I mean, are you willing to stop playing golf? Are you willing to stop hanging out with your friends? Are you willing to you don't have time to do all of it. You don't have time to do all of it. And so the greatest of all times, they're really only great at one thing. So for me, and you obviously know this about me, is that I've got my career, I've got mission, and I've got you, and I've got our kids. That's it. I mean, I have a handful of friends, but I just don't have time for a lot of things. I don't watch sports anymore because I don't have time for 5 hours a weekend to watch sports. I don't play golf. I don't have 5 hours in order to do that. So the question is, how much are you willing to suffer? How much are you willing to say no to things that you used to say in the past, because you're going to have to take that time to put it towards something that you really want. So is your why big enough for you to suffer, which is important?
Well, and I think that is the number one. I think it's brilliant. I think it's the number one question and it will get rid of so many people's disappointment, because you either say opt out and go, you know what, I'm fine where I am.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to double my income. I'll 10% my income because I'm not ready to sacrifice all of these other things that I also want. And you bring up a point. I mean, if you want to be, which most people don't, we know that. If you want to be the best of the best, if you want to be top 1%, top 0.1%, you do not have balance in your life. It doesn't happen. You're not well-rounded. You are great at something and at that one thing, but you are not doing all the things.
Yeah. The quote people say all the time is, you hear from Alex Hormozy and different people, is that people are jealous of what you have, but they're never jealous of how you got what you have.
Oh, that's good.
Which is very true. So, because if people, and Elon Musk talks about that, people say, hey, so everyone wants to be you, Elon, and Elon will come back and I don't think they really want to be me if they knew what it took to be me. Yes, he is the richest guy in the world, but he sleeps 6 hours a night, and he works 7 days a week, and he does not do other things besides his work. He's 24/7 his work, and so people want his wealth and they want his identity, but they're not willing to do what it takes to become him. They're not willing to suffer enough. And so that's important. It's an important question. And then that last question, just to make sure we're clear on that before we get into step 2 and 3 and round this up, is that it's whose coaching do you need? And whose help do you need? And it's so delusional for people to think that they can do it by themselves. I mean, I've just never met a great one that's done it by themselves. I've never met them. You just can't do it. You just can't do it by yourself. I need you. I know you need me. Just last night I was going through a problem, and I called your dad up and said, I said, Big Dog. That's what his name is, Big Dog. So I called Big Dog up and, give me some advice on this client situation I'm in right now, and he gave me some great wisdom. And so the coaching along the way makes all the difference. The advice that I would give people, because normally people ask this next question when we talk about coaching, is, what kind of what kind of coach should I get, or how do I know it's a good coach? And the best advice that I give, and I know you give as well, is have they done what you're trying to do? Because there's a lot of poser coaches out there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? There's a lot of poser coaches. And so it's hard, right? It's hard to respect those poser coaches.
Those executive coaches that have never been an executive type of poser coaches.
Yeah, they took a course on Udemy, and of course they got it all figured out, and they're going to coach in their pajamas, and you're trying to scale your business by 10x, and they never scaled their business by 10x, and so or you're trying to you're trying to earn $1 million a year selling, and the most they've ever earned is $100,000 a year selling. So to me, I think it's very important that when it comes to the coaching along the way, just make sure that you're hiring someone that's a practitioner, that's not a philosopher in coaching, and that's our best thing. I mean, the number one way we qualify our coaches is whatever we're trying to. Whatever I'm trying to become in the future, whatever you're trying to become in the future, we always want to figure out, have they done something that we haven't done yet? Not just do they know something that we don't know, but have they actually done what they know? And that's important.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really important, right? When we're watching, who do we follow online? I watch, the kids or friends of mine that are watching dating podcasts from a bunch of single people. I'm like, wait a second, like we've got the wrong mentor here. But it also reminds me of a few years ago. There was an executive that I was working with, and I was telling stories about different mentors that I've had, and how much I learned from them, and how grateful I am for what they poured into me. And it was a female executive, and she was quite a few years my senior, and she looked at me and she said, Mary, that's the difference between you and me. I've never had anyone offer to be my mentor. And it paused me for a second. For a second, I fell into it with her and was sad for her. And then I went, wait a second. No one has ever offered to be my mentor. I have declared that they're my mentor. I am persistent. I show up. I ask questions. I don't small talk with people that are smarter than me. I ask them questions of what I need to know, what you know, so that I can do the things that you do. How many times did I sit in your office and I'm like, I am not leaving until I know how to win at this. I've never had like a formal invitation or an informal invitation of like, Mary, I'd love to mentor you to the next level. No, I just kept showing up and asking questions and being relentless with it. And so I think too, is always knowing on those is be proactive. And sometimes we can't get in front of somebody. And so we are reading their books or things like that. But you are the best at getting in front of the person that you want to be your mentor and convincing them to work with you personally. And so I think this is one of your secret gifts that people don't know about, or they'll see pictures of us online with different, high up or different, celebrity coaches out there, and think that it was some sort of invitation. No, you were like, I need to know what they know, and you put yourself in front of them.
I've done that multiple times.
Very many times, yes.
I did that with Kurt Kaufman, who wrote the book First Break All the Rules and Follow This Path, award-winning business author. I was 25 years old, went right up to him at a keynote and said, I need you to mentor me. I will buy you any meal. I'd love to take you to anything, any lunch, any dinner. I just have to ask you questions. And he was actually very resistant, and I was very persistent. But yes, I'd done that with Susan Stageman. She said, no, I only do classes. And I said, what would it take? How much do I need to pay you in order for you to coach me one-on-one? I need to go faster than your classes. I can't wait. And she's like, what are them for? I said, we'll come up with a price and I'll pay it. And we did that with Steve Siebold, same thing. So convince him to help me become $1 million speaker. And Michael O'Brien on culture, did the same thing with him. You're right. So it's even most recently our newest coach, Wesley, that helped us with coaching high performers through their fear. Again, he did not have a one-on-one coaching practice like this. He coached people, but he didn't coach people on how to do what he's doing one-on-one. And so same thing, I went to him and said, he said, well, I got a class for that. And I said, I don't have time for a class with everyone else, the general population learning this. I need to learn this the fast track. I need the fast track version. So what is it going to take to coach us one-on-one? That's what I want.
Yeah. Well, I remember, being there with Bruce Lipton or
Lipton.
the Gottmans. You're taking one-on-one. No, we don't do that anymore. Oh,
how much is it going to take?
What hour do you have free? We will figure this out.
And tell me your price, and I will pay it. Yeah. So you really have to demand. You have to demand the coaching. I do believe, and you believe too, is that we're all doing the best we can with the resources we have, and those resources are what we say, do, and think about. And positive change comes from adding more resources. And these people, these humans, they've got a resource that I don't have, that you don't have, and so I need that resource. I need to plug my brain into theirs. I need them to give me their information, and I need to become them. I need to know what they know, and think like they think, and see the world through their eyes. And so that is the coaching. That is the coaching you have to have.
And opening up to criticism, because in all of that, the first step is asking questions and getting the answers. The next part is, okay, I'm going to do this in front of you. I'm going to practice in front of you. Will you analyze me? Give me feedback. Hey, when you watch me do this, what would you change about me? How should I do this differently? And that's hard, because one is you're putting yourself out vulnerably, but you're also in these situations, you're doing it in front of somebody you admire. You want to be proud of you. You want to, there's a part of you that's just like, please tell me how great I am. Tell me all the things that I'm so wonderful at. But if they do that, one, it's not truthful, because I know that I'm not perfect in these areas. And second is it would be allowing me to stay in my former identity when I'm trying to become something else. So there is that self-work to do, and to be ready to be criticized by somebody that you admire, and being willing to do it, and then still loving them and trying it and doing it again.
That's it. It's a whole other episode on just criticism's a gift. I mean, that's a whole other episode. So, okay. So once we finish step one, which is that clear outcome frame, we go to step two, which is that skill gap, and then step three is execute. So very quickly, the biggest thing people need to understand with step two is there's some skill that you are lacking that's preventing you from becoming who you want to become. And once you become who you want to become, obviously you'll earn what you want to earn. So it's being really clear on what are the things that you are not saying or doing that someone else is that's earning or has become who you want to become. What are they saying or doing, and really creating that inventory, doing that autopsy of where are you lacking from a skill perspective. I know. It's kind of funny because we're in such this like strength-based movement, which is kind of soft, and I get it. I get the idea of focus on your strengths, and I think there's importance to that. But I do remember, I was a member of Phi Kappa Sigma fraternity, and one of our mantras was focus on your faults and never give up. That was a thing we said over and over again. Focus on your faults and never give up, which is interesting because that takes a lot of courage. Most people want to focus on their strengths and forget their faults. And they try to oh no, I'm actually perfect. I'm fine. But you're not perfect. There's someone out there that is doing something you're not doing, and they know something you don't know. They think differently than you think. They say different things than you say. And so you've got to figure out what is that limitation, and you need to be honest with yourself on that skill gap. And then, of course, you got to move on to step three. Once you're really clear on that skill gap, then you have to execute. And that's really probably where the hardest part of the work is. You are 2/3 of the way there in the goal setting process. Once you're clear on the outcome and once you're clear on your skill gap, you're 2/3 of the way there, but you still will not make it unless you do really probably the hardest part of the 3-step process that I know Big Dog Wrench would say, and that's you must execute.
Yeah, yes, Big Dog Wrench would say that. But also on the execution, I mean, the thing about it that's so difficult is, and I think we have to come to terms with ahead of time, is you are going to be asked to do something that you don't want to do. You are going to be asked to say something that you don't want to say that makes you uncomfortable. You're going to be asked to think things and to show up places and to stand in a way and dress in a way and speak in a way and hold your body in a way that is uncomfortable to you, that you don't want to do, because if you wanted to do it and it was easy, you'd already be doing it. So if somebody, I think that's the other thing, if somebody is telling you things and you're excited about it because you're already doing it and it feels good and it's easy for you, it's not a big enough push. It has to be, it's going to be, in order to get you to big goal settings, right? If you're in maintenance, it'll be different, but these big goals that you want to do, just know it is going to be uncomfortable because it's going to be something you don't want to do. And now you have to make the decision. That's where it comes up. Do I execute or do I not? And it's one thing to sit in a classroom or sit with your mentor and be like, yes, I'm going to go do it. But it's another thing to be all alone. And it's, selling into a panel or a board of executives, or one-on-one to another human being. And now doing something for the first time, saying something for the first time that is so uncomfortable to you.
That's it. So in future episodes, we will 100% unpack this concept of all of these leashes and things that are popping up once you start the execution process that kind of keeps you from maybe doing the hard things and continuing to execute. So we'll talk about that in the future. But to wrap up right now, tell me something that a sales professional can say, do, or think about to really improve on setting and achieving goals.
I mean, the easiest thing that a salesperson can do is go through the questions of the goal setting guide. The half of the work is already done for you of figuring out the right questions to ask. Fill it out, interview somebody else, have someone interview you. If you fill it out on your own, make sure that you are sharing it verbally with another person.
Thank you.
Yes. Jason, tell me something that you can say, think, or do differently in order to achieve your goals.
I would say be very honest and not delusional about your skill gap, which means it's probably not just you asking yourself that question. It's probably going to a colleague, going to a manager, going to a coach, and saying, hey, here's the skills I think I'm lacking that's going to prevent me from earning an extra $100,000 this year. But am I on track here? Or are there other things that you see that I am not doing, or that I am not saying, or things that I need to up-level myself in order to achieve what I want to achieve, to become, the ultimate sales professional, the ultimate sales warrior? And so to me, that's doing some hard work right there. People don't like to do that step, but that's very, very important. So tell me something that a sales professional needs to say, do, or think about in order to set and achieve goals.
Get into a habit of pushing yourself and doing things that are uncomfortable and that you don't want to do, in order to become immune to that so that you can do more of it. So for instance, there might be some discipline in your working out or in your eating or in the way that you speak, just personally, that you want to clean up, you want to have a little bit more discipline, you want to be uncomfortable so that now your baseline is discomfort. I am used to being uncomfortable. So now when you are asked to do that by somebody else in order to achieve what you want to achieve, it's easier for you.
Love it.
All right, Jason, tell me something that you can say, think, or do differently in order to achieve your goals.
I would say it's important to be clear on your why. Again, that why must be greater than their sacrifice. It needs to be from the heart. It needs to mean something to you. I remember when we asked our middle child, Mary Jane. I remember asking her when she was really, really young, tell me what you want, and she said, I want a black puppy. And I said, well, why do you want this black puppy? And she said, so I can hold it and I can take it out to go potty, And so she was like, her why was obviously very motherly. That was what she wanted. She wanted to nurture this black puppy. And if you think about it, her identity there was, she was probably wanting to be a kind of a nurturing type person. Mm-hmm. And it had nothing really to do with the black puppy. It had everything to do with more kind of a nurturing person or taking care of something else, right? And so I think that why has to be very, very big, and it has to be very clear That why is really that emotional kind of fuel that helps people stay on track. So, all right, one last one. Tell me something that a salesperson needs to say, do, or think about in order to set and achieve their goals.
Yes. A salesperson needs to demand coaching from people who are better than you, people who are achieving things that you want to achieve, people that can do things that you want to do in achieving what you want to achieve. And so one is, do not wait for somebody to offer coaching and mentoring. Go find it. And second, please find the person that's done it. Don't find the person that makes you feel good. Don't find the person that's your really good friend. Don't find the person that's the funniest. Find the person that is achieving the goals and demand their coaching.
That's great. Okay. All right. So it's been a great topic. So again, everyone needs to take this very seriously for you to achieve whatever goal that you want to achieve in the rest of 2024, and of course going on to 2025. It's all about step one: be super clear on what do we want, why do we want it, how are we going to get there, whose coaching do we need. And then step two is be super clear on our skill gap. We cannot be delusional. We have to be very objective on that. We have to look in the mirror. We have to be objective. And then step three, again, what Big Dog Blaine Wrench would say is we have to execute. Execute is the most important thing, and which we have to do all three. So all three steps are really equally important in order for us to achieve our goals. So again, everyone who's listening in right now, go to the show notes, download the guide. If you need our help at all, of course, we can help you fill it out as well. And until next time, this is Jason Forrest. Push yourself to become a better version of you.